Hello everyone, welcome to Literature Camp, a channel for the preparation of UGC NET and SET in English literature. I am Debarghya Chakraborty. This is my first class on literary theory for the preparation of UGC NET and SET in English literature. The topic of our today's discussion is formalism. So be ready with a pen and paper and start making notes. Let's start this class. Formalism. What is formalism? Formalism is a literary theory and criticism which focuses on the form and the structure of language of a text. So formalists, they believed in certain key assumptions. Number one is literature, especially poetry, has a special function of language. So their focus is on language. This is number one. Secondly, it was possible to discover the underlying formulae or the structures of literary text by a study of its devices. So secondly, they focus on literary devices of a text. Thirdly, literary analysis could be as accurate and precise as science. So what they wanted is a scientific way of reading a text, right? So formalists, they rejected author, number one. They rejected the reader as well. They rejected the historical, the cultural, social, biographical influences of a text. Yes, they rejected everything. What they accepted, what they valued is language of a text, the form, the structure of a language. So formalism is not only about the grammar and the syntax of a text, but also about the meter, the rhetorical devices, right? The figure of speech of a text. So this is all about formalism. So formalist criticism is divided into two groups. Number one is Russian formalism. Number two is new criticism. In my next class, I shall be discussing new criticism. Today, my focus is on Russian formalism. So, Russian formalism, by the name itself, you can understand that it began in Russia in 1910 and in 1920s, right? Russian formalism has two distinct uh, groups. Number one is Moscow linguistic circle. Number two is opposaz. So Russian formalism has two distinctive two distinct movements. Number one is Moscow, the Moscow linguistic circle is a group, and secondly, opposaz group, right? So the Moscow linguistic circle. Now, the Moscow linguistic circle began in 1915 and which ended in 1924. All right. Who are the members of this group? Number one is Cliff Fortunatov. He is the founder member. Yes, Cliff Fortunatov. A question can come. Who founded this group, the Moscow Linguistic Circle? The answer is Cliff Fortunatov. He's the founder member. Then Roman Jacobson. Yes, he's a very key figure, key member of this group, the Moscow Linguistic Circle. Next, Grigory Vinokov. Next, Boris Tomaszewski and Pete Bogatayrev. These are the names you need to remember. These are the members of this group, the Moscow Linguistic Circle. Right. Next, opposaz group. What is opposaz? What does it mean? Opposaz means study of poetic language. It's a society for the study of poetic language. Yes, opposaz group was a prominent group of linguists and literary critics in St. Petersburg. Yes, in St. Petersburg, founded in 1916, and dissolved by the early 1930s. Opposaz means study of poetic language. It was a very dominant group in St. Petersburg, began in 1916 and dissolved in early 1930s. What are the key members of this group now? Number one is Victor Slobosky. Yes, Victor Slobosky, Boris Eichenbaum, Osip Brick, Boris Kuznets, and Yuri Tynyanov. These are the key members, very significant members of this group, Opposaz group, right? Boris Eichenbaum, he first used the word formalism. This is something that you need to remember. So one question can come, who first used this word formalism? So it is Boris Eichenbaum. All right. Now, the Prog School in 1926, as I've told you already, Roman Jakobson was a member of the Moscow Linguistic Circle who left that group and who founded another group called the Prog School of Structuralists. Yes, it is a part of structuralism. Formalism is a part of structuralism. I shall be discussing structuralism in my next class. The Prog School, founded by whom? Founded by Roman Jakobson. Yes, he founded that school in 1926. What are the tenets of this group? You need to remember that language is a coherent system fulfilling a range of functions in society. This is a quotation, all right? So this quotation definitely can come. Language is a coherent system fulfilling a range of functions in society, right? Secondly, this is number one. Secondly, poetic language foregrounds its own use. That is the second tenet of this school, this group, the Prog School, founded by whom? Founded by Roman Jakobson. Now, Roman Jakobson, he worked with aphasic people with an inability to use language without difficulty. So he worked with aphasic people with an inability to use language without difficulty. He developed a theory of language use by two rhetorical devices, two rhetorical figures. Number one is metonymy, number two is metaphor. Please make a note of this. Definitely this question can come. So Roman Jakobson developed a theory of language by two rhetorical figures, two rhetorical devices. Number one is metonymy, number two is metaphor. Now, I shall be focusing on the list of important works that we need to remember. Number one is Roman Jakobson's modern Russian poetry, published in 1921. Very important work that you need to remember. So who wrote this work? Modern Russian poetry, published in 1921. This Roman Jakobson. Next, Boris Eichenbaum. Eichenbaum or Eichenbaum? I think it is Eichenbaum or Eichenbaum. Please check it on Google. Boris Eichenbaum's The Theory of Formal Method. The Theory of Formal Method. All right. Published in 1927. And please make a note of this. As I've told you already, Boris Eichenbaum founded, or he used firstly the term or the word formalism. So the theory of formal method by Boris Eichenbaum or Eichenbaum. Number three is Vladimir's Morphology of Folktale, published in 1928. Very important work. Vladimir's Morphology of Folktale, published in 1928. Next, Victor Slowski's Poetics, published in 1919. Very important work, Poetics. Number 2 is On the Theory of Prose, published in 1926. Definitely, they can simply ask who wrote On the Theory of Prose. So it is Victor Slowski, published in 1926. Number 3 is Art as Technique or Art as Device. All right. So this is an essay, very important essay written by Slowski. And in that work, Slowski referred to Tristram Shandy, Lorenstein's Tristram Shandy, which parodied the traditional form of language. So please make a note of it. There is a reference of Lawrence Streams Tristram Shandy, and Slowski referred or argued this work, Lawrence Streams Tristram Shandy, which parodied the the traditional form of writing language, right? So these are the key works, very important works written by Victor Slowski that you need to remember. Next, so formalists are concerned with the distinction, the difference between the story, which they called fabula, right? The story, which they called fabula, and the plot, which they called sujet. So story is called fabula by formalists, and plot is called sujet by formalists. So they are concerned with the distinction basically between story, which they called fabula, and the plot, which they called sujet. And sujet, it is sujet, which means the plot, which creates, all right, which creates, let me spell it correctly, which creates the defamiliarization effect on fabula. This is something that you need to remember. Sujet creates the defamiliarization effect on fabula. So what is defamiliarization? Definitely I shall be discussing defamiliarization very soon. So please make a note of this, that formalists, they are concerned with distinction between the story, fabula, and the plot, sujet. So what is defamiliarization now? Defamiliarization is a technique, is an artistic technique to describe familiar things in an unfamiliar or in a strange way. Yes, defamiliarization is a literary device. Yes, absolutely, it's a literary device where by language is used in a way that ordinary and familiar objects are made to look different. So it is the power of the language which can affect the perception of a person. The language has the power, right? So it is what distinguishes, it is what distinguishes poetic or literary language from non-poetic or non-literary language. This is something that you need to remember, right? So they focused on poetic or literary language. I mean, the defamiliarization, this concept focuses on the poetic or literary language from the non-poetic or non-literary language. So this is something that you need to remember. And this concept, defamiliarization, is coined by Victor Slowski. Yes, he is that person, Victor Slowski. He coined this term defamiliarization in this work, art as technique or art as device that you need to remember. Please make a note of it. The concept of defamiliarization was coined by Victor Slowski in which work? In art as technique or device, right? So defamiliarization distinguishes poetic language or literary language from non-poetic or non-literary language. So Victor Slowski intended the distinction between poetic language or form language and the ordinary prose language, right? He is also influenced by Aristotle, who said that it is the poetic language which must appear strange, wonderful, right? So he's also influenced by Aristotle that you need to remember. So I hope you have written down all the points I have made today. If you have any query, you can simply ask. In my next class, I shall be discussing new criticism and all the literary theories that we have. And if you are new to my channel, let me tell you, I have created this channel, Literature Camp, for the preparation of UGC NET and SET in English literature. If you have internet pack, you can simply watch my classes. Thanks for your attention.